Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kazuyo, and I represent JCIE USA. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization operating in Washington, D.C. and New York, and with partners in Tokyo. We specialize in bringing together American and Japanese leaders of today and the future to facilitate their policy dialogues and exchanges. We do this work to deepen mutual understanding and to strengthen the foundation for U.S.-Japan collaboration on shared areas of interest and need, such as promoting healthy and active aging. It's been about 7 weeks since U.S. President Trump and Japan's Prime Minister Takaichi both attended the biannual summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, in Kuala Lumpur. Ms. Takaichi's visit drew attention as her diplomatic debut, while President Trump made headlines by declaring a ceasefire agreement on the Thailand-Cambodia border and announcing several trade deals and framework agreements. Their visit reaffirmed ASEAN's importance as a strategic and economic partner of the U.S. and Japan with a shared outlook for the Indo-Pacific region. In addition to that, today's webinar will focus on the fact that the countries in the ASEAN region share the challenge of population aging with Japan and the United States, which are super-aged and aged societies, respectively. I'm delighted to introduce three distinguished speakers who will discuss Japan's engagement of ASEAN and how it aligns with that of the United States, and what these demographic shifts mean for security, innovation, and cooperation in the region. Our first speaker is Ambassador Masahiko Kiya, who was Japan's ambassador to ASEAN until last month and is now back in Tokyo as ambassador in charge of Okinawan affairs. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is Dr. Andrew Oros, Senior Fellow and Director of the Japan Program at the Stimson Center. And last but not least, we have Dr. Jao Min So, based in Thailand. He is with ACAI, which stands for ASEAN Center for Active Aging and Innovation, where he serves as Head of Policy Advocacy, Information, Education, and Communication, as well as Capacity Building. I'd like to thank all three speakers for joining us today and the Toshiba International Foundation for sponsoring this webinar highlighting Japan's global engagement. If you missed our previous webinar on Japan's engagement in Africa, you can find it on our YouTube channel. Finally, to our audience, please submit your questions anytime from the Q&A button below, and we plan to address some of them hopefully towards later in the discussion. I will now turn to Ambassador Kiya, who had a very busy last couple of months wrapping up his previous responsibilities as Japan's ambassador to ASEAN, including the Prime Minister's visit. Ambassador, given your experience leading Japan's political, security, and economic relations with ASEAN, we hope you can kick us off with a discussion on a few points, including Japan's strategic priorities towards ASEAN and key areas for its leadership, your assessment of the outcomes of the summit and how the new government is managing the relationship, and finally, how aligned Japan and the United States are in their engagement of the region. Over to you, Ambassador Kiya.
Hello, good morning, good evening. I'm Kiya Masahiko, Ambassador for Okinawan Affairs, now based in Japan, Naha, Okinawa. Nice meeting you all. Well, it is my, first and foremost, I'd like to express my great appreciation to Japan Center for International Exchange, as well as all the participants for arranging this great webinar on this important topic in the important field of addressing the challenge of the aging society. This has been an important issue for us, and I personally have been working on this in the last 3 years when I was in Jakarta. I was in Jakarta from late 2022 till last month, going through the 50th year of ASEAN-Japan Friendship and Cooperation, and that important year for ASEAN this year, when the ASEAN Community Vision 2045 was adopted and Timor-Leste joined ASEAN. And I'd like to be I like to briefly explain the points that Kato-san raised about the importance of ASEAN for Japan, as well as recent development between Japan and ASEAN and the US. First, Japan's strategic priorities toward ASEAN. Well, ASEAN is important for Japan for three reasons. One, geopolitically, ASEAN is lying the choke point for political situation. Sort of it's a geopolitical situation, location. It's a link between Japan and the rest of the world in terms of maritime transport. And secondly, it's a growth center as well as innovation, the field for Japan's innovation development. And thirdly, it's a hub for multi-layered regional cooperation centered, led by ASEAN, engaging all the key partners in the region and the world. So in particular, Japan's priority recently has been to promote free and open Indo-Pacific. And that leads to the second point of the outcomes of the most recent ASEAN-related summit, where new Prime Minister Takaichi made a diplomatic debut. Well, the highlights of this meeting for Japan was not only her engagement and greetings with all the leaders in ASEAN and the region, but also this is the occasion to highlight and promote the synergies between Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific, as well as ASEAN-led the AOIP, the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, which emphasized importance of engaging partners and trust building through economic cooperation, leading to strategic collaboration. So on this occasion, ASEAN and Japan adopted a joint leader statement on further promoting the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, and ASEAN appreciated Japan's active promotion of free and open Indo-Pacific. And that was complemented by Japan's explanation and commitment to three pillars of cooperation with Japan, namely peace and stability, including official security assistance and cybersecurity, economic and social co-creation, including AI and ACAI, and that is issue of public health, and heart-to-heart exchange across generations. That includes cultural exchange like work project, as well as student exchanges. So those are the highlights of the most recent ASEAN summit. And new administration's policy is focusing on the promotion of further promoting free and open Indo-Pacific, and so make it more make it evolve and advanced. And lastly, let me explain the alignment of US and Japan's policies toward ASEAN. I myself have been working with US government and private sector people based in Jakarta and on many ASEAN-related meetings. And one important point is that US and Japan have not only been working, coordinating with each other in our policies toward ASEAN, but also promoting various small multilateral frameworks, that is, say, US, Japan, and ROK, or Quad, or engaging other partners. And also, I should mention the Philippines is an important partner for both Japan and US. So there's the trilateral cooperation among US, Japan, and the Philippines. So Japan and US has been engaging other partners and ASEAN members to deepen collaboration among Japan, US, and ASEAN across so many issues, extending from security to people-to-people exchange. Those are my takeaways from my experience in 3 years in Jakarta. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Kiya, for that overview of Japan's approach to the region as confirmed in the recent summit, and addressing also how the US and Japan remain aligned in their regional engagement in a multi-layered way. You spoke about the different types of collaboration between ASEAN and Japan, but before I turn to Professor Oros, I have one follow-up question. You're now ambassador for affairs related to Okinawa, which is known for exceptionally healthy longevity. Do you have any insights you'd like to share about Japan's cooperation with ASEAN to promote healthy and active aging?
Thank you for your interest in Okinawa. That's my new portfolio. Well, I've got to study further about the longevity and some elements, many advantages and challenges. But the one thing I should highlight about Okinawa is the existence of a OIST, Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology Graduate University, which is quite a prominent university promoting scientific innovation. And I'd like to explore during my tenure here, further collaboration or sort of making full use of this institution based in Okinawa for the benefit of various global issues, including the promoting active aging and global health in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Professor Oros, I would now like to turn to you. You are an expert on demographic change in the Indo-Pacific, and you recently published a book entitled Asia's Aging Security. In it, you analyze how demographic shifts are shaping security policy outcomes of the states in the region and of the United States. We were hoping you can address two questions initially, perhaps drawing from your book. One is how population aging is unfolding across ASEAN in comparison to the trends in the US and Japan. The other one is how you see this demographic change shape the security and defense capacity in the region, as well as Japan-US ASEAN cooperation in the years ahead. And before addressing those questions, if you have anything you'd like to add about Japan's role in the region, given Ambassador Kiya's remarks, please feel free to start off with that. Over to you, Andrew.
Great. Thank you very much, Kazuo. And thanks everyone for tuning into this webinar to listen to a very important topic, I think, for Japan and for ASEAN and the region more broadly. What I think my initial reaction to the ambassador's remarks illustrate to me, and a point that I make in my book, that there are different phases of aging, right? There are both opportunities and challenges. So although Japanese society is one of the oldest in the world in terms of the percentage of people who are age 65 or over, this is what we call a super age society, or you can also look at the median age of Japanese is also the highest in the world. Japan is still a vibrant, innovative, and economically growing place. And in many ways, it's the envy or a model for countries that are not as developed economically. And I don't expect this to change in the foreseeable future as Japan continues to age. So one point I make in my book is just like with people, we can think of different images of aging. So on the one hand, aging symbolizing frailty or weakness. But on the other hand, aging often brings with it confidence, wisdom, increased social capital, and wealth. And Japan, I think, especially shows these latter characteristics as we see its engagement with Southeast Asia. Now, I do want to say, as we shift more to the topic of Southeast Asia, Japan's connectedness with Southeast Asia is, of course, not new. It goes, back to the 1970s, if not before, as we talk about the post-war era. But I do think that the relationship between Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia is going to intensify because of demographic trends. So in Northeast Asia, you have much more significant aging, which means that you're going to have shrinking workforces and actually shrinking total populations. Whereas in Southeast Asia, you're going to see still growing populations and more youthful populations. So, if I could give an example from my book, Asia's Aging Security, I have a table that summarizes one aspect of this change. And so I compare 2020 to 2050, so a 30-year period. Okay, so in that period, the 6 states of Northeast Asia, the total population will decrease by over 12%. And in southern Indo-Pacific, so this is not just ASEAN, but includes countries like India and Australia, you're going to see a population growth of about 16%. So we contrast a decline of over 12% with a growth of over 16%. So that's one way we can think about a big change in population demographics. And the other that relates to aging, let's consider just median age. So in 2020, in Northeast Asia, the median age is about 40. And by 2050, it's going to be over 50. Whereas in Southeast Asia, the median age now is about 32. And in 2050, it's expected to be 41. So that's a big difference. And so I think that Southeast Asia, we can expect it has an opportunity to grow economically and to play a bigger role in international security than it has to date. So I'll just give a few examples of that to sort of put some concreteness to it. Of the larger states in Southeast Asia, only Thailand has demographics that are similar to Northeast Asia. So Thailand's population actually is expected to begin to shrink this year. And soon it will shrink below 70 million. And Thailand will become a super age state around 2031. But if we contrast that, for example, to the Philippines is a country that is still growing and is expected to grow well past 2050. And here's a really striking difference. In 2024, so last year, only 5.5% of the Philippine population was age 65 or over. 5.5%. In Japan, that number was over 30%. Do you see that enormous difference in aging? And even if we project out to 2050, still only about 10% of the Filipino population is expected to be age 65 or over. So these differences are going to just accentuate. And so we see the East Asian region as an area of great diversity. So why does that matter? And what can countries do about this? I think that the aging countries like Thailand and Singapore can learn some lessons from Japan and also from other aging states like South Korea, for example, will actually become an even older society than Japan's by 2050. And both are technology superpowers, right? And they're developing technologies to assist with aging in a social setting as well as in terms of military security, which is the focus of my book. But in terms of away from military security, in manufacturing, of course, Japan and South Korea both are huge leaders in industrial robots that help with production to offset a shrinking workforce. And in terms of social care, which I think is an area that JCIE is especially strong, and I really appreciated their studies, you can see in Japan, for example, something that looks like a Star Wars droid like R2-D2 that dispenses drugs at hospitals, a prescription drug dispensing robot that's said to be more accurate than a human nurse in verifying a patient through retinal scans, popping out just the right amount of pills, watching with a camera to make sure that the patient takes that. Or a different sort of robot that can help lift an elderly person out of a bed and put them into a chair, which, in the past would have to be done by a nurse. And so these are examples of technologies that Japan has had to develop because of its aging population. And I expect that Japan will be exporting this technology to more and more countries as they become super aged. So those would be some of the kind of top line takeaways from my book as it relates to Southeast Asia.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oros, and thank you for reminding us about the positive aspects of Japanese trends in we're seeing in Japanese population. The contrast between the trends in Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia was also very clear from your remarks, and I also appreciated your highlighting the role of technology and what that can do for in managing aging societies. Before we go to Dr. So, who is from Thailand, I have one question about planning for an aging society. You touched a little bit about lessons that Southeast Asian countries can draw from Japan, but are there any other elements that ASEAN governments can incorporate in terms of planning ways that they can incorporate demographic foresight into long-term strategic planning?
Yeah, so I think it's not just about technology. That's an important thing to note. And as we think about a number of ASEAN states which are less technologically advanced and less economically developed, thinking about some of the soft skill lessons, I think is also important. So, one example of that that we've seen in Japan and in South Korea both is finding ways that older workers can continue to be economically productive, right? So not just having an arbitrary retirement age where regardless of ability, people stop working because that affects economic output as workforces shrink in shrinking populations. But it's also, we've learned about social connectedness that people do better when they're contributing to society. So looking for ways that that's possible, I think is a lesson that we've seen both in Japan and South Korea.
Thank you for that. Yes, JCIE's work definitely promote not just healthy aging, but active aging. So I appreciate you highlighting that. Dr. So, we'd like to turn to you now. Dr. So has extensive experience not only in promoting healthy and active aging, but also in public health and global health. And next January, JCIE is co-hosting a side event with his organization and the Japan International Cooperation Agency at the Prince Mahidol Award Conference in Bangkok, which is a major annual global health conference, and that will be on the theme of global demographic transition through innovation policy. Dr. So, we heard about Prime Minister Takaichi and President Trump's visit to the region earlier from Ambassador Kiya. So we'd like to first hear any insights you have about the reactions from the people in the region about that visit and the summit. And secondly, given your expertise, we'd like to hear about ASEAN-wide regional policies and frameworks that are being developed to promote healthy and active aging, and in particular, how governments are collaborating to promote innovation in this area. Over to
you. Thank you, Kazuo-san, for the brief introduction, and good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer, JCIE, to invite ACAI for this webinar to join Ambassador Kiya and Professor Oros to discuss on this important issue on aging, as well as the cross-regional collaboration between ASEAN, US, and Japan. The Ambassador Kiya has stated some example of the current cooperation between ASEAN and Japan and engagement in many perspectives. And also, Professor Oros highlights some of the complementary opportunity for his book. I believe that there are many things that ASEAN can learn from regarding this. Regarding your first question about the visits of the Prime Minister Takaichi and the President Trump, I believe such a high-level engagement are always welcome as a reaffirmation of the region's strategic importance and the principle of ASEAN centrality. More importantly, this signaling a mature dialogue that the comprehensive security should include human security and also developmental resilience. And for those who are working on the issue like addressing demographic transition, for example, ACAI, this is very crucial. And it's elevates the discussion on the aging society, the healthcare innovation, and the social infrastructure, and opens the door for more substantive collaboration for long-term economic vitality and social stability in the region. And regarding your second question about the ASEAN-wide regional policies and framework that are currently being implemented to support healthy and active aging, I would say that in the perspective of ACAI, I believe that ASEAN has already established a robust policy architecture to guide the region collective action. For example, first is the Kuala Lumpur Declaration on Active Aging that was implemented 2020, which provide high political commitments. And then is the ASEAN Strategic Framework on the Health Development 2021 to 2030, which reaffirm that healthy aging will be a core strategic pillar and a permanent priority in the region's health agenda. Additionally, we have to say that the founding of ACAI, ASEAN Center for Active Aging, is actually a direct response or institutional outcome of this commitment. And now ACAI is implementing many initiatives. For example, we are developing a standardized ASEAN Active Aging Index to monitor and evaluate the progress of active aging in the region. And we are also working with our partner like JCIE, JICA, and to mobilize ACAI country coordinator in each of the ASEAN member states to translate this framework into a concrete regional action plan. So these policies are not just agreed upon, but it can turn into the real action and implemented and adapted to the local context. I think I covered some of the questions that you asked. That would be my response.
Thank you, Dr. So, for covering the reactions within the region about the collaboration with the U.S. and Japan, and the examples of various initiatives that the region-wide initiatives, including the establishment of your organization. I believe you are familiar with various collaboration that is taking place, but to promote healthy and active aging. Could you speak a little bit about the challenges that you are seeing to promote that kind of innovation to promote healthy and active aging?
Thank you for the questions. Indeed, there are a lot of challenges, but if we have to point out a few, first of all, I want to clarify again that ACAI is actually a very new intergovernmental organization. A lot of our initiatives are at the initial phase, but still there are some challenges and barriers that we have identified. To point out a few, the first one is the heterogeneity and the context of the wide diverse ASEAN landscape. For example, a one-size-fits-for-all solution doesn't work in the ASEAN context. A solution that works for Singapore may not fit for Laos, Cambodia, or Myanmar. And scaling this kind of innovation really requires a deep localization. The other important issue that I would like to highlight is the issue of the sustainable financing. There are a lot of countries in our region facing these challenges, and many pilot projects struggle to integrate into the national health and the social protection system. So moving from grant-funded pilot to a sustainable finance program is very critical. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for identifying the need for localization and sustainable financing. At this time, I'd like to remind our audience about submitting any questions that you have through the Q&A button. And as we collect those questions, I will just go ahead and ask one question to each of the speakers. We'll start with Ambassador Kiya. We spoke about a lot of the positive elements of ASEAN-Japan collaboration, but given your experience, are there any issues that you are concerned about as you think about the future of Japan-ASEAN cooperation or Japan-US-ASEAN cooperation?
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. So, first, the important agenda for the future of ASEAN Japan cooperation is to further promote trust between ASEAN and Japan. So deepening concrete collaboration across many fields, from security to people-to-people exchanges, and demonstrate the tangible outcomes. I think that is the most important elements of our collaboration. We laid out 130 action lines 2 years ago in 2023 as Japan's commitment, or Japan-ASEAN mutual commitment of Japan and ASEAN to further deepen our collaboration. I think the bottom line is to just continue taking actions. That is the priority. The concern, probably the concern may be the geopolitical development or the change of the global environment. Some worsening environment. I mean the natural environment, and including the growing risk of natural disasters, so say always existing risk of say pandemics. I think those are the concerns, but I think we can continue deepening our collaboration. One last point that I should mention. I mean, so far, as this is the input. This forum is for active aging. I haven't had the opportunity with all the big questions. Just no time to elaborate on the concrete collaboration between ASEAN and Japan in the field of active aging. We've been doing that a lot since the operationalization of ACAI last year, which I visited toward the end last year, and Japan has been working with ACAI in this field in many ways, in collaboration with JICA and JIFE, Japan ASEAN Integration Fund, and also AREA. So with all the cooperation, the concrete activities such as the regional active action plan drafting workshop took place in Bangkok, where the ACAI's 5-year strategic plan was operationalized, and also it was just toward the end of last month in October, toward the end of October, that all the people working on aging from across ASEAN, Japan, also partly from China and the ROK, got together in Narita and had a big workshop and a training course, and where innovation was also taken up. And I think, and that is a basis for the upcoming, the good step for the upcoming the PMAC meeting in Thailand in early next year. So I think those I'm hoping that this ASEAN-centered, ACAI-centered activities are fully supported by various organizations of Japan and affiliated with Japan. So this is one important thing that I'd like to share the information about. Thank you very much. Sorry to make a long intervention.
Not at all. Thank you. I appreciate that concrete examples of collaboration, especially highlighting ACAI's role. Dr. Oros, you spoke about various implications of or various trends in Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia in terms of demographic transitions. If you wanted the audience to take away one big significant implications of demographic transitions that's happening in this region for the security and stability of the region, what would you like that message to be?
Sure. Well, if we can limit it to one thing, I think that the main takeaway is that because demographics has become a variable now in in regional security. So meaning that some states are growing, some states are shrinking, some states are aging very quickly, and some states less so. The result of this over time, and my book is looking at, in particular, 10 years from now at 2035, and then 25 years from now up to 2050. So over time, we're going to see more and more divergence, and that will lead to a more multipolar region. So we will see some Southeast and Southern Asian states playing more of a security role, likely because of their increasing population size, their relative youth, and probably their growing economies as a result of that. Now, of course, having positive demographics doesn't necessarily mean that your economy is going to grow and you're going to develop economically. We can see lots of cases, especially outside of Asia, of countries that have fast-growing populations and they're not able to utilize what demographers call that demographic dividend to lead to economic growth. But if we stick to ASEAN, the Philippines, for example, is a great example of a country that is pretty well utilizing its growing youthful workforce and seeing robust economic growth as a result. And so I think we see a potential security partner in the Philippines more than in the past. Although, of course, the Philippines already is an ally of the United States. But I identify in my book, in particular, the Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, and India as 5 countries in the southern Indo-Pacific that have very positive demographics, and I expect to play a larger role in military security.
Thank you. I did pick up that the southern Indo-Pacific countries are, you expect them to play a larger role in security of the region, given the increase in their population or the trends in their population. Dr. So, I can't help but notice that you have an experience addressing HIV/AIDS and tuberculosis as a public health professional. Given that expertise, could you touch on what makes Japan's contribution to promote public health around the world unique and strong, in addition to their role in promoting healthy and active aging?
Thank you very much, Casio-san, for your questions. Based on our experience with our partners from Japan in the past, I think Ambassador Kiya has already given a lot of example that ACAI is actually working with many organizations from Japan, including JICA, JCIE, and JIE. Actually, we are also working with the Fukuoka administration to promote the city-to-city and best practice sharing. So there will be an MOU signing in this upcoming PMEC conference. The Fukuoka administration prefecture will be signing an MOU with Rayong City in Thailand as a city sister city partnership to promote AIDS-friendly environment. I mean, based on our past experience working with Japanese partner, we have learned that the Japanese approaches always emphasize on the long-term partnership, institutional capacity building, and also community level implementation rather than the short-term or the transitional support. I believe this kind of focus will always help fostering lasting resilience to address long-term public health challenges, including demographic transition and addressing the aging and challenges. I would also like to add that ACAI remains open and eager to deepen this kind of collaboration with Japan and all other partners, maybe from the US, to strengthen and enhance active aging across ASEAN and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. So. I appreciate you raising sister city collaboration, and we're definitely interested in exploring more initiatives with ACAI in Japan. I have a bunch of questions now submitted from the audience, and if I may, I'm going to pick up several questions that are addressed to the same speaker. So let me just read off the questions first to each of you, and we can start with Ambassador Kiya in the responses. So for Ambassador Kiya, we have a couple of responses that are not just related to healthy aging, but more broadly on ASEAN, Japan, US. The first question is the roles that legislatures, Japanese side or the US Congress can play to promote ASEAN, Japan, US collaboration. The other question is given that tariff negotiations are in the headlines, there was a question about any coordination between Japan and ASEAN regarding their respective tariff negotiations with the US, and if there wasn't any, why not? And you might have some insights on that. So those are the two questions initially for Ambassador Kiya. For Andrew, there is a question from one of the audiences. Excuse me, I'm trying to close this. Yes, what is your message to policymakers in Japan and ASEAN who perhaps don't see a connection between their aging demographics and national security? And if we make aging a security issue, does that mean our national security ecosystem needs to be involved in the response? So that's one question for you. Dr. So, there's a question in response to your comment on ASEAN being a diverse region and that there's no one-size-fits-all solution to promoting healthy and active aging. Could you explain more in detail how ACAI is dealing with such diversity and the need for localization? So that's one of the questions. So Ambassador Kiya, let me start with you on the responses to the questions about the role of legislature and the tariff negotiations.
Thank you very much. Regarding the role of the legislature for ASEAN-Japan-US collaboration, I think one important thing is to think about ASEAN. You know, US and Japan cannot dominate ASEAN. ASEAN is at the center of the collaboration. We have a ASEAN-led mechanisms, ASEAN-centered framework. So we should always keep in mind. Take an example of this this aging issue. You have ACAI. Dr. So's ACAI is there. It's at the center. We are supporting ACAI. ROK, China, Canada, others are supporting. I think JCIE is taking part. AREA is working with ACAI. As US and Japan work together, I think, of course, our alliance across many fields is very important. But as we work with ASEAN, it's very important to keep ASEAN take the lead in addressing the challenges on the ground. And I think that is the role as Japan and US legislature approving the budget or adding the political momentum. We should always listen to ASEAN and support ASEAN's own leadership and solutions. And on tariff negotiations, even among ASEAN member states, those negotiations are taking place individually. So ASEAN itself is coordinating, sharing information and sharing know-how and providing no retaliation, such as upholding principles. I think regarding Japan and ASEAN cooperation in addressing economic uncertainty, global economic uncertainties, I think we are exchanging views, but I think our responses are different. But I think our exchange of view, coordination are quite important, but no concrete negotiation collaboration, as I understand. I'm not working on this issue hands-on, but I think that is my understanding.
Thank you for addressing both questions. Professor Oros, the question about how you would advise national security ecosystem or policymakers to consider this issue of the connection between aging, demographic transition, and national security.
Yes. Well, I will say that over the period that I was doing the research from for this book, which started before the pandemic, it's become clear to me that really all of the states that are part of the 16 countries that are in my book are understanding that demographics are affecting their security. So that wasn't, I think, as much the case back in the 2010s, but now we can see references to aging and shrinking populations or population growth in the case of some of the southern Indo-Pacific states in the national security strategies of these states. So we are seeing that. But I'd like to build on a point that Ambassador Kiya just made and kind of adapt it to this question that was posed to me. I think that what we also are seeing, though, is that as some states in the southern Indo-Pacific begin to play a more active security role, the way that they define security and the way they prioritize among different issues of security is different than how the United States thinks about security or how Japan or Australia think about security. So I do think that a change in the more multipolarity that I expect we'll see over the next few decades is that there's going to have to be more give and take among states about which issues get addressed in which order. You know, I think that the US and Japan, for example, have very similar outlooks about priorities of certain threats and certain opportunities. And that becomes much less the case when we seek to cooperate with the Philippines, for example, or Indonesia. And I'd also just the other thing I'd like to say in response to the question, I'll give a shout out not just to my own work, but also a scholar whose work I draw on a lot is Jennifer Shuba, who is also here based in Washington. And she has a new book out with a co-author called Toxic Demography, which I think is really relevant to the second part of the question posed to me about what if we make aging a security issue? And I think that what Dr. Shuba and others have pointed out is that we do unfortunately have a past practice as human beings of securitizing population demographics in very toxic ways, whether that's through the eugenics movements of the 20th century, the one-child policy in China that led to some very barbaric practices of the state, or making this an issue that it's a woman's problem, right, and not a human problem. And so, you know, scapegoating women, making it their responsibility, for example, are challenges I think we need to guard against as we think about demographics as a security issue. But nevertheless, I think we do need to see that, especially in the rapidly aging and population shrinking states, security strategies need to adapt. And so I've talked about technology as one way that that could happen. I'll also say one other area, especially in Northeast Asia, where we have these rapidly aging and population shrinking states, is finding ways that a wider range of citizens can participate in national security. And so the most obvious example would be the other half of the population, which are women, right, which play who as a group play a much smaller role in the armed forces of any of these states. But they have been, you know, women have been sort of identified as an opportunity to get like higher enlistment in both in South Korea, in Japan, but not just women, but also slightly older workers. So moving the retirement age a little bit later is another way that this can happen. And also thinking about increasingly as we have these so-called gray zone conflicts, like cyber conflict, for example. We can think about, does someone really have to be fully able-bodied in order to fight a cyber war? Maybe we need to have somewhat more flexible requirements to serve in the military in certain areas. So I do think that states are recognizing that, you know, if their population shrinking and aging, that their practices need to change. And states that are on the other end of the spectrum that are population growing and have growing economies, we're seeing more technology being adopted. And that also is going to create more of a need to cooperate, right? As more states have submarines, as more states have ships that are going beyond their territorial waters, more cooperation in the security realm is going to be necessary.
Thank you. One of my favorite, I guess, term in your book was about the two dual gray challenges in the region. I thought that was very clever. So thank you for your response to the questions. Dr. So the question, just to repeat, addressed to you was how ACAI more specifically respond to the diversity in the region.
Thank you so much for the questions again. To answer your question, how we address the diverse ASEAN landscape, and I have to borrow some of the word that Ambassador Kiya, you mentioned about listening ASEAN and support ASEAN. So I would like to borrow that we are actually just same way, like listen to the ASEAN member state and the support to the ASEAN member state. And we are also providing the capacity building to the ASEAN member state who are working on active aging to the ACAI country coordinator capacity building program, which Ambassador Kiya already mentioned that just a few months ago that we bring all these people who are working in the active aging to Japan and do the knowledge sharing and also drafting a regional action plan together and to fix for the local context. That's one thing. The other thing is we also have a group of experts for each of the ASEAN member states. So while we are addressing the challenges for promoting active aging in that country, where we are actually listening and support from the people from that country in this regional action plan. In addition to that, ACAI is launching a call for research and innovation annually, every year, to support and scale the homegrown solution in each of the ASEAN member states. So we plan to connect this innovator in that country with their governments and the private sector, try to promote, like a dynamic cross-sector collaboration for promoting active aging of these initiatives. And we are organizing like regional aging-related forum, for example, the next upcoming PMEC for knowledge exchange and the policy dialogue, etc., to address the issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I like that you used the word homegrown solutions. I have more questions, and I think I'm going to start with Dr. So because it's regarding PMAC 2026. There's a question about your expectations for the outcomes for the 2026 PMAC, which again is going to be on the theme of global demographic transition through innovation policy. And before you answer that question, I have a question from Professor Yuji Uesugi. And this is not directly related to the issue of aging, but he is somebody, I believe he's based in Okinawa, but he asked, in what ways should Japan, the United States, and ASEAN countries collaborate with Okinawa to foster youth empowerment or align their actions with the US or Japan's regional policies as outlined in ASEAN Outlook? So I think, Ambassador Kiya, you talked about student and cultural exchanges between ASEAN and Japan. If you don't mind addressing this question from Professor Uesugi, I'd appreciate that. But first to Dr. So and then to Ambassador Kiya. And I have one more question that will be for Dr. Oros after that. You're muted.
All right. So the question is about PMAC. I would like to say that PMAC, one of the objectives of the PMAC is to follow up with the ACAI country 5-year strategy plan and the regional action plan, and some of the regional initiative to define the way forward. For example, like after we finish the regional action plans, we have to turn it into actionable activity into each of the ASEAN member states. We will also finalize the triple AI, which is ASEAN Active Aging Index. So now are in the developing phase. So all the people, all the experts who are participating in developing this ASEAN Active Aging Index, we come together and discuss the way forward. In addition to this, we are also trying to invite all our partners, including JCIE, JICA, Japan, and many other partners to come and discuss what are we going to do after this biannual plan, because now ACAI is entering into the second year. So what are the collaboration? What are we going to do next? Something like that.
Thank you. You have so many initiatives and you're already looking further into the future. That's very impressive. Ambassador Kiya, questions on Okinawa and youth empowerment.
Yes, thank you. Before touching on that youth Okinawa issue, I just echo Dr. So's answer about this emphasis on resilience and capacity building, institution building, long-term engagement, and homegrown solution. I think this is very important. So the topic of today's seminar webinar is Japan-US ASEAN cooperation on active aging. And I think as we promote this, I think the key is this homegrown solution. I think Japan has an experience of Tsukuda Doctrine, which was made nearly 50 years ago, and highlight the importance of supporting ASEAN's solidarity and resilience. And so based on that, I think US and Japan has plenty of knowledge and experience and technology for innovation. Both combined, we can bring out pure added value. So this is how we go ahead with the trilateral collaboration. That's the key. And I think this is something that I hope my successor and friends will promote in the future. And on youth and Okinawa, I think there's an ongoing youth exchange between US and also Okinawa and the US, thinking of Okinawa in the future from the US, a TOEFL program taking place, I think, 7 years in a row. But I think looking ahead, probably with my background of work with ASEAN, I hope that I could somehow engage some exchange program between Japan and ASEAN, including a Model East Asia Summit, where US is also present, so that I think Okinawa, young people in Okinawa could also join this global cooperation. I think Okinawa has strong attachment to peace issue, and I think a distinct strength in many areas. So I hope that we like to make use of those background and presence here to address the issue that Professor Uesugi raised just now. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Kiya. So we have just a couple minutes left. So I'm going to just pose one additional question, or actually two questions that came from the audience. I'll raise both, and we'll give each of you an opportunity to respond to one or the other and make any closing remarks. So the first question is something that we're interested in. What roles can non-governmental organizations like JCIE play in promoting US-Japan ASEAN cooperation to promote healthy and active aging? The second question is, given the discussion on demographics and security, how do you view the rising tension between China and Japan over the last month or so? So you can choose whichever question, either one, and maybe we can start with Dr. Oros, if you're ready, and Dr. So, and then Ambassador Kiya.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate that last question because it allows me to make a comment about the broader takeaway of my book, which focuses more on Northeast Asia. And I started research for the book because I was puzzled by early scholarship that imagined how states would act when they were older, when society was older, suggested a more peaceful interactions because it was theorized that older people would prioritize healthcare and their grandchildren and not be as militarily active. And yet, what we see is in the decade since Japan became a super age state, it underwent what I called in an earlier book a security renaissance, right? A more active security policy. Russia also is a country that has now a shrinking and aging population, and clearly it's a very malevolent security actor. And so, to the question about Japan, China, it really underscores a point of my book that if we're looking at the real superpower, military superpowers in the world, I expect them to be the aging powers all the way through like 2050. And what that means is we need to look at how these states are adapting their national security strategies to adjust for the challenges of their changing demographics. But I fully believe that China will be able to project power and man their multi-million person army, even with their shrinking population. And I also fully expect that Japan will be able to emerge from the 2020s as a more powerful military actor through its plans for increased defense spending and cooperating with the US and South Korea and other allies on using technology to have a more capable force. So I think it's very important that Japan and China find cooperative ways to interact to keep from using these lethal military forces and to show, to continue the tremendous economic growth and social development that the East Asian region has enjoyed in over 70 years of peace among the major powers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oros. Dr. So.
Yes, thank you again, Casio-san. I would take the first question about the non-governmental organization like JCIE. In my opinion, the NGOs like JCIE could play a very critical role. They could act as catalysts or conveners or knowledge translator, facilitating the dialogue, bringing people together from different sectors and facilitate cross-country, cross-sector collaboration and sharing best practices and creating the neutral platform for collaboration. For example, this webinar or the Habis platform, the Healthy Aging Prize for Asian Innovation, which is a very successful model. This could really help translating the high-level political commitments into actionable policy and benefiting, for example, aging population.
Thank you for highlighting the Healthy Aging Prize for Asian Innovation, and we appreciate ACAI's cooperation with that. Ambassador Kiya, over to you.
Thank you. I'll answer the two questions combined. JCIE and other NGOs can play a catalytic role in forging collaboration among ASEAN, Japan, China, US, ROK, and the countries in the Indo-Pacific region. So one good example is a Happy Award, which started even before the operationalization of ACAI, linking ASEAN member states, China, ROK, and Japan, Japanese, all the people, companies on the ground, undertaking best practices and sharing those in the region. And now JCIE is bringing the US. Congratulations. I think this webinar itself is a good example of JCIE's catalytic role in issue-focused, pragmatic cooperation, regardless of any geopolitical tensions, so that people feel the benefit of collaboration, which would lead to forging strategic trust among those participants. I'm hoping that the JCIE will continue to undertake this role in PMAP and beyond. So this is in line with the ASEAN Outlook on the Pacific or Free and Open Indo-Pacific. And I'm really hoping that this sector-based, issue-based collaboration. I think the NGOs, JCIE, are more flexible in engaging their partners. Government may find it some constraint in undertaking such engagement, but I think I'm hoping that the NGOs can explore such untapped opportunities for collaboration, not only in active aging, but also in development or health. I think making use of this recently launched UHC Knowledge Hub. I think in Japan, it was just earlier this month that the big forum took place. And I think JCIE is playing an active role in global health. So I'm really hoping that this Japan initiated JCIE will explore those collaboration beyond health and other fields. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I am sorry we went over time by 5 minutes, but we are near the end. Once again, I'd like to thank all the speakers and the audience for sticking around. I hope this discussion helped illustrate Japan's engagement with ASEAN. I picked up the importance of ASEAN centrality and also consistent and persistent efforts to collaborate, listening to all of you. And I hope the audience took away the implications of the demographic shifts in the region, including the enhanced role of Southeast Asian countries. JCIE will certainly continue to work on this topic of healthy and active aging as an area to promote U.S.-Japan collaboration as well. So we hope you can stay in touch with us in the new year. And in the meantime, happy holidays to everyone. We wish you well and see you again soon. Thank you again.
Happy holiday. See you
Happy
soon.
holiday.